and recite with me our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Johnny Girolamo. I work for the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce. We're the ones that put this evening together. We were previously going to have two programs. We were going to have the contested Westchester County legislator, and then we were going to have the uncontested candidates have a discussion later on. That portion of the program has been taken off. Many of the candidates are attending another very important event, and our moderator was not available, so we'll just be doing Mrs. Borgia and Mr. Outhouse. This is run by the League of Women Voters, and they will explain to you all the rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for all your work in organizing this event. Welcome, all of you, and welcome to our candidates. Thank you for joining us and sharing your views with your community. I'm Susan Maggiato from the Rivertowns League of Women Voters. I wanted to state our nonpartisan policy to begin with. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We never support or oppose candidates or parties. There is a videographer recording this forum, and only this videographer is authorized to record the forum, so no private recording is allowed. This would be a good time to remind you, please, to silence your cell phones. The video will be available very soon on GoTV, channel 74 on Cablevision, and also on Fios, and it will be available on YouTube. You can search for Greater Ossining Television. It will be available to the candidates to download to their sites and everyone else for viewing or however you want to use it. However, it can only be aired in its entirety. We don't edit it, and we don't use excerpts from it for any purpose. I wanted to just make a mention to you about early voting. You know, as I'm sure many of you know, for the first time you will be able to vote early in New York State, starting Saturday and right through Sunday, November 3rd. Your site in Ossining is the Ossining Recreation Center on Broadway. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator. John Hessel is a board member of the New Rochelle League of Women Voters, one of the first, if not the very first, league in the country. So I will turn the meeting over to John. Now, we have questions already that you have given us. During the meeting, if you have further questions, please come up to the table and write them down and pass them along to us, or Shar will walk around the audience and we'll just keep moving those questions forward. Thank you.
I invite the candidates. Okay, hi everyone. There's two candidates running for the 9th District County Legislator. Two candidates are Catherine Borgia and Robert Outhouse. The candidates have flipped a coin for the opening statements, questions, and closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. We're collecting questions as Ms. Maggiana, I'm never going to get that name right. Collecting questions from the audience, so if you have a question, raise your hand and one of the league ushers will come around and hand you a card, and then they'll hand me the card, and then I'll ask the questions. Question answers, and you can both sit. Questions, answers will be 1 minute and 30 seconds, and then you have a 30-second rebuttal if you request it. Okay? The timekeeper, here's our timekeeper, and she will have a stop sign, a 30-second sign. And I just want to say, of course, as we mentioned before, video recording is prohibited. They're recording this for the local television station, the Greater Ossining TV, which is, you search it up and then you'll get a YouTube channel. Channel 74 on cable, and we think it's channel 40 on Fios. We weren't quite sure about that, okay? Silence your cell phones. there's no applause during the forum, okay? And Mr. Outhouse won the coin toss and he deferred, as we say in football. And so, Catherine, you have the first opening statement, and our timekeeper is right here. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the League for moderating and to the Chamber for hosting. Thank you to Tom for videoing, for GoTV, our faithful videographer. My name is Catherine Borgia. I am the current incumbent. This is the end of my 4th term on the County Board of Legislators. Prior to that, I was the town supervisor for 2 terms, and I served 2 terms on the Ossining Village Board. In addition, I was Assemblywoman Galev's Chief of Staff for 7 years. So I have a long record of government service. I came to public service through a volunteer background with many organizations. My educational background is I have an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business, and I'm also a graduate of SUNY Binghamton University. And what I'm running on is basically my record of accomplishments. Especially in the past 2 years, the county has been able to do a tremendous amount of work, much of which had been deferred during the prior administration. As the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, I've really helped to accelerate capital projects to improve our infrastructure, give services to our seniors and our children, and to pass laws that make it easier for people in Westchester County to have accomplished and successful lives. I'm asking to return to this role because there still is work left to do. Some of the projects that I am currently involved in include creating a card for small businesses working with the local chambers to allow them to give discounts for county ID cards. I'm also working on making sure that the closure of Indian Point, we have some short-term economic issues and some long-term environmental issues, so I'm a very strong advocate at the state and federal level for the things that we need with respect to that. And also I'm working on something I started working on when I was a town supervisor, which is creation of a veterans court here in Westchester County so that our veterans receive the services they need when they get into trouble with the law. So I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. And Bob, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good evening, I'm Bob Outhouse. I'm running for Westchester County Legislator here in District 9. I'd like to thank the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for holding this forum here this evening. I think it's important to hear from the candidates on the local issues that affect you. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Cortland and a graduate at Hendrick Hudson High School with a bachelor's degree from Manhattan College. I've served my community volunteering since 1978. I started that community service as a youth group member in the Peekskill Volunteer Ambulance Corps. I've spent over 40 years serving my community as a fire chief, a police detective, and a New York State EMT. I've coached in the town of Cortland. I've coached girls basketball, girls softball for many years. I was a 10-year appointee on the arson board under Governor George Pataki and have worked on state legislation for the fire service and helped our state lawmakers pass the Fire Safe Cigarette Act and the arson in the 5th degree law. I believe our government should be transparent. I believe that your legislator should be responsive to your needs, not only on a county level, but as an advocate when they are local issues of concern. Not only on the county level, but also on the state level. The current administration has raised your taxes 3 times in 2 years. There's no taxpayer protection. Homeowners have been hit both ways. We need to bring new business to grow our county and increase our tax revenue instead of taxing our way out of it. We need to cut wasteful spending, like spending $10 million on a new ride at Playland. That was a negative income every year. I'm energized and I have the drive and ambition to tackle these difficult issues, and I look forward to being your next county legislator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our first question is to you, Bob, and you have 1 minute and 30 seconds. What is your opinion about the River Knolls property?
Well, there's a big issue here with the River Knolls property. Let's start off by taking the people concerned about what's going on in the community with overdevelopment. We have to listen to the people. We have to look at what the people's needs are. I think that the River Knolls project, people spoke out about it. I think that we have to listen to the residents. We don't need overdevelopment. Some of these projects that come into our communities, developers like to give out a lot of money, and it's very enticing to schools, to recreation. And then once they develop the property, they move on. And then it's up to the people to raise the taxes, to maintain the items that they've left. So, River Knolls, you know, I agree with the people right now. I think that we should rethink this project all the way.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ford, Kathy?
Catherine, please.
Catherine.
Thank you. Well, first let me preface it by saying that New York State is a home rule state, which means that zoning and planning decisions get made at the local municipal level, which is a good thing because that means that the people of a municipality have a say in what happens in their community. So having said that, I just want to clarify that the county has a planning department that has an advisory opinion and does not have direct authority over any local planning decision, which I think is the way that Westchester County communities want it. River Knolls, I think the town board has been extremely responsive. I watched their last meeting, which was earlier this week, and it seemed like they gave a tremendous amount of attention and thoughtful consideration to what the municipalities were what their residents were saying. It seems like there is room for negotiation on this project. There are some things that, when I was the town supervisor, this was a going mental hospital. So although that is no longer what this use is for, it is clear that this is a piece of property that there will likely be a private sale of, and there'll be some building on it. But I agree that municipalities need to listen to their constituents, come up with solutions that work for both the owners of property, because property owners do have rights, and with the local municipality, including getting givebacks from the developers. I think that's actually a good thing to do when you have a development that's coming in. So I am confident that the town board will make the right decision, as is their authority to do so. But I agree that when you are creating a new project, you work with the people, and you work with the people who come to your community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have an opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal on this question.
I would just add to the, spot rezoning is what it comes down to. When local municipalities open up the spot rezoning, that means everybody else can sneak in behind, and then you get this overdevelopment. So I think the town board, I was at the meeting the other night, I heard the people, I think the people spoke very well, that the town board should actually look very closely at this project.
Okay, and Catherine, you get 30 seconds also if you'd like it.
Zoning decisions happen at a local level, and spot zoning is something that is usually not typically considered. What you look at is how zoning of all parcels of similar nature and location should be handled when you create a comprehensive plan for your community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Catherine, this question goes to you first, and it's a minute and 30 seconds again. What will you do to protect and expand, if you choose to expand them, collective bargaining rights?
Well, the collective bargaining rights are already pretty proscribed at a state governance level. However, I will say that in the past 2 years, the county executive negotiates the collective bargaining agreements, and the board then gives input into when it's approving the rates. The agreement. So I have a very strong pro-labor background, including in my family, and I think that we have been able to work very well together in the past 2 years to create agreements that work both for the taxpayers and for our employees at the county. I will also say that in the town and the village, I had very, very successful, when I was at the table, I had very successful negotiations with the collective bargaining units. And this is another situation where, there's give and take. You work together with people, you try to create win-wins. I'm very strong on union labor. I think that unions are the backbone of the middle class, And I have always been a friend to labor and found ways to work together that meet the needs of both our laborers, our employees, as well as the taxpayers who ultimately pay employees' salary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Sure, thank you. I've been part of the collective bargaining agreement for 23 years of my career with the county police. And a lot of times we never saw eye to eye and went to arbitration with the county. So collective bargaining is an important aspect in negotiating the best contract you can give the unions for what we can afford. So we always have to take care of our workers. I was one of those workers. I'll promise that I always take care of the union workers. I've worked in the union all my life, and I stand by the collective bargaining agreements.
Okay, thank you. Would you need a rebuttal for that?
Well, I will say that fortunately, in the past 2 years, the contracts that we've negotiated were not required to go to arbitration, and that's because we brought a different level of collaboration to those negotiations under the Latimer administration. And I am very pleased to say that I've received the endorsement of the PBA, the superior officers, the corrections officers, the CSEA, which is our largest unit, and and the Nurses Association, who covers all nurses, but nurses that are employed by Westchester County.
Thank you. And Bob, rebuttal?
When we go to arbitration, it costs the county money. The attorneys have to get involved. So it's extremely important to come up with these deals so we're not dragging these contracts out. I've been involved in contract negotiations the last 2 to 3 years. And then there's the question of retroactive pay. So these are the items that have to be considered when you go to arbitration. It costs you money. It costs the county money, it costs the taxpayers money. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Bob, this one's to you first. What are your concerns and plans about the health and environmental effects of Indian Point?
In 2017, we were told the Indian Point nuclear generating station was going to close in 21 and 22. We had asked then, and I campaigned strongly in 17 for an environmental impact and economic impact statement. So we knew exactly what we were going to be facing environmentally and economically. Right now, we are in a scramble. The state is in a scramble, trying to figure out what is the best course of action and who is going to oversee the process of the decommissioning of this plant. This is a very dangerous time for this plant, for the people, for the first responders. No one brought to the table, except for me 3 weeks ago when I spoke to the NRC about our first responders. We're the first line of defense when that plant stops generating power. It's going to go into the local fire departments. Local fire departments need to know how to handle these types of situations. Right now, we go to the front gate and they take care of it for us. They tell us when they need us, where we need to go, and how to be prepared. That's all going to change. I call upon the county executive to get involved with our county Department of Public Safety, our Department of Health, and Department of Emergency Services. We need some action, we need to get some training, we need to figure out how we're going to move forward here. It's going to be an environmental impact. We don't want an incident to occur.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Catherine?
So the closure of Indian Point is a decision that happened at the company level and at the state level. I agree that the impacts that were going to be felt at the local level. So the environmental concerns are basically that once the energy has stopped being generated, the spent fuel rods have to go into a cooling pool for a specific amount of time before they're ready to be moved into what the permanent storage appears that it's going to be, which is dry cast storage. It's a steel frame that goes inside a concrete sort of mini containment unit. I do have some concerns about the ultimate plan. Part of, I agree, what is disorganized is that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, is responsible for the decommissioning. The Department of Energy owns the actual material, but the successor to Entergy, who's the current owner of the plant, is responsible for the safety at the site. So one of the things that I have done in a bipartisan way with my colleagues is to create a resolution saying all of the areas where we need state and federal assistance to make sure that we have the help that we need. There was a plan to move all the nuclear waste from all of the facilities in the United States to a specific location. That appears to be stalled or perhaps dead in the water. So we are going to have these spent fuel rods with us for a very long time. And I do agree that we need to look at all the best environmental protection, the best way to communicate to future generations, and the best way to protect ourselves in the area.
Thank you very much. Would you like a rebuttal?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Catherine, for agreeing on the issue that's at hand. This issue should have been tackled 2 years ago when we started this came to us. But unfortunately, it's in our lap. And we need to make some moves. We need to make some moves now. Putting them in a dry cast, there's different ways to do it. We just learned that sometimes the steel containments start to rot over the years. The federal government owns that fuel. The federal government's in charge of that fuel. And I think there's going to be should be some federal money coming our way.
Okay, thank you.
So I agree with that as well. I've been going to NRC meetings since I started working for Assemblywoman Gamla from 2002. So I do know that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, although they are on site now that the plant is operating, does plan to reduce their oversight at the times that once the plants are decommissioned and the actual buildings are taken down. Now, I see that as a big problem. At the last NRC stakeholders meeting, I raised that issue. I think that it's very important for us to work together as a community. I don't think that this is a partisan issue. I think this is something that we all have to work on to make sure we get the resources that we need.
Thank you very much. Okay, here's the next question, and this starts with you, Catherine. What would you at the County Board of Legislatures do to improve the academic scores in successive District 9? How would you support the local school districts?
So as you know, the county does not have direct control over the education department. That is controlled at the state level, the State Department of Education. But there are significant things that county does control that helps to improve the academic success. So one of the things that we are looking at is, I am actually the co-chair of the county's Families Task Force, which is a group of about 30 organizations that comes together once a month to talk about the needs of families in our community, families and individuals in our community, but mostly families. So one of the things we need to do is to make sure that our children have safe, secure homes, that we reduce the level of homelessness because displacement impacts children's academic scores and other things. We also need to make sure that our children have access to sufficient food. We do have food scarcity in Westchester County. 1 in 5 people are food insecure, and the majority of those people are children and the elderly. So there are things that we are working on to make sure that everyone has access to good nutrition. And I think the other thing that we need to do is work together to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to succeed. We're in a place in our world and in our species where we cannot afford to have some people who are throwaway people. We need to make sure that the potential for everyone, that everyone's talents are recognized, are nurtured, and are cultivated, because our whole world really depends on it. So there are several programs that we are working on in the county to make sure that people have access. I had the great pleasure of speaking at the first girls conference last week, and there's great potential out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Bob?
So school districts in District 9, let's just quickly look at the Hendrick Hudson School District, which is losing $25 million in the shutting down of Indian Point. It's going to be a big concern in the Hendrick Hudson School District. Moving down to Ossining, Ossing's been underfunded for a long time. People are fighting in Albany all the time. There's a great outcry from the public here that went up to Albany. And you know what? When you need funding like that, as your legislator, I'd be standing up there with you. And I'd be arguing with our state representatives. And make no bones about it, I'll go anywhere and fight for the people if it's for the people. And Ossining schools certainly do need money. It's been a long time, and it's going to come every year. So we're going to have to stay on top of this. We have to work with our state officials and get the proper aid. Get the proper aid. The next thing you need to do is we need to get some more mental health into our schools, help our children get through the rough times at home, family issues, the food issue. We lost 25% of funding in the state in this last budget for mental health. We need to increase mental health all around and in our schools as well.
Okay, thank you. Would you like a rebuttal? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. Not exactly a rebuttal, just to say that I've been part of the fair funding fight in Ossining schools for a long time, and it was a peculiar thing that happened to the Ossining schools. Several years ago, during a time of budget scarcity at the state, they held funding level and did not provide the accommodations to take into account when a school district grew larger, as the Ossining School District has. There's also been an increase at people living at the free and reduced lunch level. So I agree that we need to work with, and I have been working with our state legislature on this issue. The great news is that with the new Senate, we do have an opportunity to make some inroads.
Okay. Would you like 30 seconds?
Just a comment. That,
Sure.
Other school districts in the area that suffered the same effects here that is happening in Ossining are actually hiring private investigators to make sure that the kids actually live in the district. We're not taking in other children, and the taxpayers here in Ossining are suffering those causes. So there are school districts making moves across the state to make sure that the kids that actually going to school in the district actually belong to the district, and the taxpayers are paying their share.
Okay, thank you. So this one goes to you, Bob. How do you plan on bringing more tax revenue to the county?
So we can do that in a few ways. The first thing is by economic growth. And I'm going to look out into the audience. I'm sure everybody knows this. One person or a family member has been affected by a terrible disease. It's called cancer. I think Westchester can lead the fight in cancer and bring economic growth by bringing the best cancer facilities to Westchester County and bring more people to Westchester for treatment. I think Westchester needs that. I had a family incident this year that I couldn't believe that we couldn't get the best care here in Westchester. Westchester needs to take the lead in this. I think that growth will help. Also, in growing your economy, you also have to take a look at your revenue that you have and prioritize your spending so that you can go out and solicit for bigger and better companies to come.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
First of all, I'm sorry about the incident in your family. I know how troubling that is for everyone concerned. But I do have a little bit of good news, which is that the Office of Economic Development under the new county executive, George Latimer, has been very robust, has worked with all of the local chambers, has myriad programs, and the really good news is that last year we passed, after a lot of investigation and discussion, and in fact we just recently had an update this week, the property of the North 60 to be a biomedical, biotechnical alleyway. I agree that there are opportunities here in Westchester. We have a lot of office space. We have a very, very, very well-educated population, and it is attractive for businesses to relocate here. And if you have a chance to take a look at the recently redone county website, you'll see that there's a lot of opportunities for local, medium-sized, and larger companies. We are working very closely with with the companies that are in Westchester County to make sure there's opportunities for all of our residents here.
Okay, thank you. Bob, would you like a rebuttal there?
Yeah, it was my understanding that the North 60 project was actually handled and passed under the Astorino administration during the final years of that administration. I believe, Catherine, you were on board that the North 60 was put out that it was going to the grassland site.
Okay, Catherine?
Sure. Yeah, the North 60 negotiations, the RFP certainly did go out during the Astorino administration, and the county board did a tremendous amount of work making that deal a better deal. It was signed during the Latimer administration.
Okay, very good. This one's for you, Catherine, and Bob, but Catherine first. I'm going to put two questions together. What plans do you have to alleviate the congestion in Ossining, And what can be done for the horrendous traffic situation at the Croton Point exit on Route 9 during the month of October while the blaze is being held in Croton?
So I lived in Ossining from 1991 until this year, and now I live basically down the street from the place. So I know this issue very, very well. And funnily enough, I sit on the Ossining Arts Council, and I did happen to have a meeting this week with the man who is the executive director of Historic Hudson Valley. And the first question he asked me when I told him I had recently moved to Croton is, does it bother you when the blaze happens? So there's sort of positives and negatives. We're talking a lot about economic development. Part of economic development is having people be on your streets, going to your shops. The blaze is actually a benefit for Croton because the restaurants and the gas stations and the other sort of service industries do benefit from that. What I would like to see, and this is a little bit of a futuristic vision, but I know that especially my own children who are millennials really want to move away from car culture. So I think that the way that a good thing for the county to invest in, and one of the things that I've been talking to Liberty Lines about in the Families Task Force and as the chair of Budget and Appropriations, is looking at some levels of alternate transportation. You know, it's been very successful in other parts of the world to have alternate transportation. There are many, many, many families in LD9 who would love to be one-car families or to live in transit-oriented development. So I think we need to look at the big picture infrastructure-wise to come up with ways to reduce every car having one single person in it and to try to find more creative ways for people, for doing people moving. I will say that I did sponsor, okay, I guess I'll have to do this in the rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, go ahead.
The congestion is not only in the Croton area, it's all the way up from Briarcliff, which starts the district. You saw the mayor started an action and is now getting some traction with the state DOT to do some surveys along the 2.5 miles from 9A through Briarcliff. So now you come up through Ossining and you get to Croton. The blaze brings in over 200,000 people into the village of Croton, which is a great economic boost for the local businesses there. It's a tough area. I think you start just as the mayor of Briarcliff did. Let's shoot off a letter to the state. Let's have them do some studies and some engineering and see how we can move traffic quicker through the area. Actually, coming down here tonight, I got a little hung up here on the light coming in. It was very long, and people are sitting there longer. So we have to move traffic quicker. So we need to get a study done, and that study is going to come from the State Department of Transportation and see how we can move people quicker.
Okay, thank you. Catherine.
Yeah, so I have some more good news about this as well. The mayor of Briarcliff did reach out to me, and I reached out to our director of operations, Joan McDonald, who was previously worked for the New York State DOT, helped us with some traffic calming here in Ossining when I was both on the village and town boards. And she has put together a meeting, which will be the week after Election Day, with the relevant elected officials as well as engineers or anyone else that the elected officials choose to bring, to look at some fast solutions that we might be able to make on the 9A corridor specifically, but also to create that relationship with the state DOT.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
I think that it's great to start these things in writing and to have meetings, but you need action. You need action. We're seeing a closure of a nuclear power plant. We have less than 4 years to get it done when it came out. We need action, and we need to stay on top of it, and our elected officials should be staying on top of those things. It's great to sit down and have meetings. I've been to the beginning of the task force meetings in the town of Portland for the closure and the endpoint. It took an hour and 20 minutes to introduce everybody before we started to get down to business. So it's action. We need action.
Okay, thank you. This one, we're going to start with you, Bob. Can you spend a minute and talk about Playland? How do you think it should be run? Was it a successful summer 2019 at Playland?
I haven't seen the figures yet come out. I do know from the past figures that have come out that Playland has actually come in the red almost every year. I did see that the Board of Legislators did put some more money going into, I think it's just going up to $8 million for electric, new electric. That was I believe it was a capital project that had to be more money added. They're redoing the fire sprinkler system, which is important. But how much money are we going to put into Playland? Playland needs to be looked at, hard and simple. I loved Playland as a kid. I always looked forward in school to going to Playland. Now that I'm paying my tax dollars to Playland, I don't get down there that much. We really need to take a hard look at Playland. We need to make a Playland that's 365 days a year that has income to the county. I think some new ideas need to come out about Playland. The other problem is we're going to wind up in a lawsuit with Standard Amusement. I guess their failed bankruptcy didn't go through. They failed to go bankrupt, so now the county is going to have a problem. And we're going to wind up in a lawsuit with Standard Amusement, who is going to run the Playland Park starting this year.
Thank you. Catherine?
So Playland did have a successful season this year. It is an unusual situation because Playland is actually owned by you, the taxpayers of Westchester County. It's a jewel in the crown, some say, of the Westchester Park system, although I prefer Groveland Point Park. But, and I think Mr. Outhouse makes a good point, which is that the real customers of Playland are and have always been families with young children. So one of the things that's interesting about Playland is as we improve it, Playland has suffered from neglect for many decades. I'm not going to only lay that on the Astorino administration because there's a lot of capital projects that should have been done in Playland for a long time. I think $8 million spent on a fire suppression system in a park that is largely wood is probably money well spent. We did have a fire that damaged our historic carousel. However, I agree that we need to focus on who is actually going to come to Playland, and what we've seen over the past year with the renewed marketing efforts is attracting young families from Westchester and from outside of Westchester is probably the best economic model for Playland. We also use Playland as a site for tourism and filming. There's a lot of TV shows and movies that come to Playland, and our wonderful, wonderful director of tourism who worked for I Love New York is actually working hard to bring more of that to the municipality. That's another way to make revenue of Playland.
Okay, thank you very much. Bob, would you like a rebuttal for that?
Yeah, no, Playland has been a great asset on the county side for the production of movies. I had plenty of opportunities to stand by and protect the actors while they were filming at Playland. It is a great park, but we have to look at where the money is going, and I think in the future we can do better in Playland. We can do better where we bring people in there 365 days a year, and families come in from all over the place, especially during winter months when it's cold and you can go somewhere and have some recreation inside. So that's what I would.
Thank you. Catherine, would you like?
Just to mention that there are two things that are year-round at Playland right now, which is the Children's Museum, which is, as we know, a collaborative effort that's been running for, I would say, about 6 years now, and the Ice Casino, which actually does bring in revenue from hockey teams around Westchester County and outside of the county.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this one is for you, Catherine, and also you, Bob. Our county needs maintenance of key systems and structures. What is your plan to perform this essential list of work?
Great, this is a great question. So there has been a tremendous amount of deferred maintenance in the 8 years before the current county executive took over. We had about $1.9 billion in deferred maintenance. So that means projects that we knew we had to do, that our departments told us we had to do, for which we received bond acts, and the board passed those bond acts, but the work was not done. So over the past 2 years, especially in my role as Budget and Appropriations Chair, we've been working with our various departments, our Department of Public Works, our Department of Emergency Services, our Department of Environmental Facilities, to make sure that we are catching up with the backlog and at the same time doing maintenance on projects before they become urgent. So I'm happy to report we heard the capital budget this week in my committee over the course of 2 days, and we have successfully caught up with about $300 million of that. The current budget as it's proposed will do between $300 and $500 million of that work, and we anticipate the backlog to be finished within 2 to 3 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Well, hopefully don't get backlogged any further because you have to have preventive maintenance. And when the county departments come to you and say, we need this, we need it now. It's got to get done. It can't be put on the back burner. You got to find ways to do it. You got to prioritize your spending. Many of you probably don't know, I know Catherine is very aware of the tremendous radio project that's being taken place right now in the county for the Department of Public Safety. We're losing our fire band, and it's costing the county somewhere, I think, up to $150 million, but we do have some grants coming in to take care of that. But, you know, that's an upgrade that was actually foreseen some time ago, but now it's coming to the end. And unfortunately, what some of the people don't know here, I see the mayor and the town supervisor here, the local fire department's going to have to change frequencies. And that's going to go on to the taxpayers of the local communities. So we're scrambling to get our budgets in line in my fire department because we're going to have to change the way our pagers, when we receive our calls. So I'm glad that we're taking care of that, but we need to stop backlogging that, and we have to start prioritizing our spending.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry. Catherine, would you like to say something to go?
We agree that it's very important, and that's what we've been focusing for the past 2 years that I've been chairing the Budget Committee on reducing the backlog and making sure that our infrastructure is safe and secure. And honestly, that doesn't only apply to the safety and security of our residents, but that is also part of our economic development plan, because you need solid infrastructure. We're an old community. You need solid infrastructure to attract businesses and residents.
Okay, thank you. And I think, Bob, you have an opportunity for a rebuttal.
Again, I want to reiterate that it shouldn't get down to this point where we're backlogged. We got to take care of business and we got to take care of them. So that's prioritizing your spending that year on getting these projects done.
Can you excuse me for a minute? We're going to go a little bit past our stop time because we have a few more questions, okay? We probably won't go after 8 o'clock, all right? So that leaves us with you, Bob, on this question. What can be done to stop the egregious illegal housing, especially in Ossining?
Well, this problem is not just in Ossining. The problem is all over. It's in every county, Rockland, Westchester. I'll tell you what the fire service is doing to help that cause. Right now, there's been legislation floating around. It's pretty promising for 2020. It's called the Illegal Housing Act, and where if you are modifying a 1 or 2 family home and you are modifying it to make several bedrooms or rooms illegally, and you are housing people in there, the landlord is going to be held responsible and charged with a felony. And the problem exists. We are putting people into unsafe homes, and we are jeopardizing our first responders, our firefighters. When they enter those homes, they are thinking that a regular, probably raised ranch, it has 6 rooms or 7 rooms, may now have 10 or 12 rooms, and that firefighter may jeopardize his life because of the illegal rooms that are made in these dwellings. So there's legislation coming out. There is bipartisan support on that, and in the fire service, I've been pretty active in pushing that. Hopefully, we'll see some action in 2020.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
So the real problem, as I see it, illegal housing, unsafe housing, substandard unsafe housing is a real problem in Ossining and in Westchester. And part of the reason that we have substandard unsafe housing is that the cost of housing is too high. So one of the things that I think is important for us to do is to increase the opportunities for affordable housing in all of our municipalities, because affordable housing is not just for low-income people. Housing costs are a burden for everyone on the economic scale until you get to the very highest levels. So I think one of the things we need to do is to make sure that we have different opportunities for types of housing, including maybe some smaller units. For example, I know that there's a big movement for senior citizens we want our senior citizens to be able to age in place in the communities that they love, where their friends and their doctors and the shops that they go to are, but they need to downsize into smaller units. One of the things that the Families Task Force, I think, has looked at is what are some opportunities for people who are in that situation. Sometimes grandparents are raising their grandchildren. That's another opportunity that we have to create housing. So I think that it's a combination of local ordinances, and don't forget, although I agree that firefighters and other emergency service workers are placed in danger, the people who are in danger every single day are the people who live in those homes. So we do need to work together to make sure that people have safe places to live.
Okay, thank you. And Bob, would you like to say a few words after that?
I agree on affordable housing. I think that we have to have some units set aside definitely for our seniors, but we're seeing a decline across the state in volunteer firefighters. They're leaving because they can't afford to live here. So we need to get some housing, affordable housing for our volunteers set aside. That would help the volunteer fire service, not only in just District 9, but all throughout the county and all throughout the state. So it's affordable housing is very important, and I do think set-asides for our seniors and our volunteers is a priority.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Catherine, this one's for you. Speak on racial issues and the recent increase of hate crimes.
Well, this is the thing that I find to be enormously upsetting. I think when you look at the uptick in hate crimes and anti-Semitism in the context of a broader historical context, whenever we see rises in this type of thing, nothing good happens after that. It's always preceding something that is very bad for us as humanity. So one of the things that I think we need to do is speak out very clearly against hate. You know, this past Yom Kippur, there was some vandalism done to the Holocaust memorial outside of the county complex, and we did have a quick response where a lot of people came together. Likewise in LD9, there were some stickers placed on shop fronts, and we did come together. I think it's really incumbent on elected officials to take the lead, of course, but every single member of the community to say that hate has no home here, that this is not what our communities are about. And to that end, we do need to work with our institutions, because a lot of this starts at the education level. People have, it's a very tense time in our world, and people have fear, and sometimes it's fear that precipitates this type of behavior, and we need to work together to lessen the fear, to make sure that everyone understands that we are all in this together.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
I think all this fear and hate crime starts actually at our level here as elected officials. We need to act better and respect ourselves. And, I wanted to run a very clean race with Catherine, and kind of took a turn for the worse here not too long ago. And I agree. Hate has no home here. And we need together to unite. I don't care what party you're from, who you are. Hate has no home here. Doesn't have a home with me, anybody else. If somebody acts and does damage or puts whatever hate crime anywhere, we're going to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. We're going to find them and we're going to prosecute them. I want to tell you again, hate has no home here.
Thank you. Would you like, or no?
There's
Bob?
no room here, I agree.
Bob, anything else? Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to think we have 2 questions left. And this one is to you, Bob. Next year is the 2020 census. What is the county doing, or what would you do as the county legislator to ensure that Westchester is accurately counted?
Well, Catherine knows better than I do, the county is making good plans to get everybody counted. I did see a lot of booths out recently on the campaign trail where you can go online and do the census online this year, which is a great thing. I'm sure the county wants everybody counted because the count is important when it comes to our federal government and our Congress and our Senate. So we want everybody counted. The county is making steps to make that happen, and it should happen. And everybody should be counted because we need representation in the federal government. We need good representation in the federal government. So I believe the county has made those steps. I've heard Catherine speak about it before. And if I was your county legislator sitting on the other side right now, I would be making all attempts on whatever way we could to get everybody counted.
Thank you. Catherine?
So it is very important that everyone in Westchester be counted. We believe that there were some areas of Westchester, including some areas of LD9, that did have undercounts in the 2010 census. The difference this year is that most of the census responses are expected to be electronic. So starting in March, you'll receive in your home postcards that have instructions on how to sign in. I personally believe that many people will throw that out because we get 1 million postcards and half the time they're for ads. And so I think one of the things that we have to do in the Complete Count Committee here in the municipality, which I am part of, as well as at the county level, which I sit on a subcommittee of, actually specifically to count seniors and disabled, because those are underrepresented communities typically in a census, is to make sure that everyone knows about it, to set up sites, to work with our faith-based organizations, to work with our school districts, to work with our senior centers, to make sure everyone knows about the census, knows the importance of the census, and knows how to complete the census, and in fact, provide assistance for people to complete the census. I just want to do a little commercial, which is that the census is hiring, and there are good jobs, and people should go onto the website. I actually have it here with me, which I can leave outside. If the league might have some things, because the league has also done really tremendous work on this, to how to apply for jobs. And the more people we have working in Westchester County, the more likely it is that we have a regular count. People are scared to interact with the government right now, and we need to make sure that they overcome that fear, because this is very important.
Okay, and this is the last question. Okay, so it's kind of like one part goes to you and one part goes to, so Catherine, this way you will answer it. What has been your greatest accomplishment since holding office? And then Mr. Outhouse or Bob, when it's your chance to answer this, it would be what you wish your greatest accomplishment will be. Okay, go ahead.
So in preparation for this debate, I actually pulled a list of my legislative accomplishments. I will say recently, the things that we have worked on have included creating a law that allows people to earn sick leave without penalty of either losing their job for companies that have 5 or fewer employees, or to have the opportunity to get paid for sick time. That is because studies have shown in places, there are many places where this already exists, and studies have shown that it increases worker productivity and decreases illness. We also passed an ancillary piece of legislation, which I'm extraordinarily proud of recently, which is called the Safe Leave Act, which gives victims of domestic violence and people who are involved in human trafficking an opportunity to take leave from their jobs in order to go to court or to move house, because when abuse victim leaves their abuser, that is the most dangerous time. I will say some of the other things that we did was we were able to pass raising the age to purchase tobacco and vaping products to 21, and then the state preempted us, which we like, because we think if things are good in Westchester County, they should be done also at the state level. We passed the ban against conversion therapy. We passed a sparkler ban that Bob actually recommended that we pass in Westchester County, and we took him up on that. We did a lot of work on criminal justice reform. I passed a law early in my time banning the use of toxic products and children's products. Well, I have a whole list, so hopefully you'll be able to speed it in my mail.
Okay, Bob?
So the sparkler ban, right? We were told that the county did not act timely enough, so they did sell sparklers in Westchester for a short time when we pleaded with them not to, but they got it done in the end. As your county legislator, I want to be a person who communicates with our community leaders, with the constituents when there are needs. And when they cry out, you have to come and try to help. Now, just because you're a county legislator, I may have no control of what goes on in local government, but I can certainly advocate for you. I've advocated for my whole life for everything I've done. We've done some great things in the fire service. I've done some great things for my village. It's about people. And I want to put the people before politics. I want to make sure that we get what we are paying our taxes for. A responsive person in government.
Okay, thank you. And Catherine, would you like to rebut? Okay, and Bob, you're okay. Okay, it's time for the closing statements. So Bob, you get to go first. I will say that there is an opportunity for rebuttal of the closing statements, okay? So Bob, you get to go first, and then you, Kathy, and you have 1 minute and 30 seconds for the closing statements, okay?
Okay, again, I want to thank everybody for coming here this evening. I hope this was an informative for everybody. This Saturday starts early voting, as you heard here at the community center, and election day is just around the corner. Clearly, there are differences between my opponent and I. So we can put all this nastiness aside now and focus on the issues and previous legislation that is questionable and correct them and move on to continue to make our county green, affordable, and sustainable for our children, our grandchildren, and our seniors. I deeply feel that we as a county need to get back into a place of civility and mutual respect. I hope that I've earned your vote this year, and please come out and vote for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Catherine.
So one of the things that I am the proudest of in my time in government, from the time that I was a staffer for the Assembly as well as up through my elected services, that I am a consensus builder. I have always worked across the aisle. I have not there's no single piece of legislation that I've done as a county legislator that didn't have bipartisan support. Often it was unanimous. And the way you get to unanimous is by back and forth, hearing the other side, coming up with compromise. I also am someone who has, from my training in Assemblywoman Galiff's office, a very strong constituent service background. Now, the problem with constituent services is, of course, you can't solve everyone's problem, but the thing that I learned very early in my public service career is that you can help people by making calls on their behalf, and that is what my office has continued to do from the time I was a constituent service person in Sandy Galiff's office up until the present. I am very proud of the work that the county board has done, particularly over the past 2 years, but in my entire time on the board. I think our legislation has made it easier and better for people in Westchester County to survive and thrive, has made it a little bit more fair, has given our people more opportunities. I ask for your continued support, and I hope that you come out to vote for me, either early voting, starting this Saturday through November 3rd, or on Election Day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Listen, we'd like to thank the Ossining Public Library. If you want to know more about your candidates, you go to vote411.org. Join your local League of Women Voters. We always are looking for members. Election day is Tuesday, November 5th. The polls are open from 6 to 9. Of course, early voting starts Saturday. This wraps up the Candidates Forum. Let's give all of our candidates a round of applause. It's not easy to do this. Thank you very much. Greater Ossining Television. That's where you'll find it.